Cashiers of Reddit, what's been the most interesting reaction you've experienced when someone's gotten their card declined? Mostly, it's just, oh no, that should definitely go through. Try it again. Fails, let me check the bank. Calls and ditches at bank for a bit, now try. Works. I had one lady who screamed and accused me of purposely making her card decline to embarrass her, as if a 16-year-old making minimum wage somehow could manage that, or would have any reason to do that to a stranger. I had a lady break down and start crying. While she was in line, she already looked like her world was falling apart. I don't remember what it is she bought, but I don't think it was more than $30, and the guy behind her offered to pay for it. More crying ensued. I had this one lady who just kept making me rescan it over and over and over again, until eventually my manager had to shoo her away. She was clearly desperate. But I worked at a store where nothing we sold was necessary for daily life. Literally, nothing. So I didn't have much sympathy. I once had a woman scream at me and call me a rich. Then she dumped her purse out and started showing me expensive makeup to prove she's not poor and broke. Could I afford a $50 lipstick if I were broke? No, I could not. It was a lipstick that normally sells for $25 or so anyway. She demanded I push it through like I had any ability to do something like that. The manager came up and told her she had to leave because we couldn't push a transaction through a declined card. I had a customer that was yelling in multiple languages in my lobby, demanding a refund onto his gift cards. We had already made his drinks, but he said it took too long. Smoothie shop. Midsummer. It's going to take a bit always. The guy wouldn't stop yelling, was trying to take other customers' smoothies to replace his, even though his were in his hands all good. After trying to convince him that I absolutely cannot give him a refund on the gift card without the actual gift card, and he finally walked up to the register, deliberately knocking over 2 stanchions with a guided rope between them, then proceeded to flick the 2 gift cards at me, both missing and going over my shoulder. The craziest part is, in the end, he actually didn't pay on the gift cards. He paid in cash. Wanted to smoothies refunds put on these non-reloadable gift cards, but also to keep the smoothie. At that point I went to hand him back the cards. He dropped his smoothie, one was mostly gone, and kept the other, and just walked out the door. Left $50 in gift cards. Utterly astounding interaction. Edit. Bannister changed to stanchion. Because that's badass. Thank @Reddit for the till. I was 16 working for minimum wage at the Jesus Chicken restaurant. A guy and his daughter came in, and she was in a gymnastics uniform. They order and she starts telling me all excited about how every time she has an out-of-town competition they try the local chicken chain together. Their total was only $16, but his card got declined. He pulled out a second, but it declined too. She looks disappointed and he tells me to cancel the order, but it was only $16. So I run to the back and grab my own card and run it through. They get their food and he lingers behind to thank me and tells me that he's going through a divorce and they probably wouldn't have gotten to continue their tradition if I hadn't stepped in. I felt good doing that for someone without expecting anything in return. But to my surprise, right at closing that night, my manager comes to the back and says someone is asking for me. The guy came back and gave me $30 and thanked me for making his daughter's day. Since a lot of people seem to have questions about the money and or validity of this event, I'd like to address them. 1. My card was a debit, not credit. Don't know why that matters. 2. When the guy came back at closing to give me the money, he had plenty of cash on him. My guess is he had it back at his hotel. 3. He thanked me for making his daughter's day because he'd been going through a rough divorce and his soon-to-be ex had most likely cancelled his cards, and had been pulling stunts like that a lot, hence the backup stash of cash. 4. I paid for the food instead of having them come back because my parents had been talking about paying things forward in our family, and I wanted to do something nice for someone. Besides, it was only $16. 5. Jesus Chicken. Chick-fil-A. The other day a woman left 4 kids as collateral while she spent an hour finding her card. Cashier at a drive-thru. I took his card at the first window. Told him it was declined. He says alright, I'll just go I guess. He pulls up to the next window. demands food, then slams on the gas, pulling away, almost crashing into another card out. That boy wanted his Wendy's. I had a guy who pulled cash out of his wallet to pay, but before he handed it to me, he stopped and said, "Oh wait, I can earn points on my card." So he got his card out and swiped. Declined. Tried again. Declined. So he says never mind and just leaves his stuff. It was only like $40 bucks. But I was like, you don't want it because you can't get points? No clue what that was all about. We see a fairly clever smoke and mirrors routine at my liquor store. Customer comes in, walks to the spirits hard liquor section and puts one bottle under their shirt while picking up a second and walking back to the register with it. They attempt to buy the second bottle with a card that they know will decline. Then they say they have to call their bank and dial a number as they leave. Misdirection works. I was told to be quiet and polite when explaining that a card wasn't working. So when the transaction was declined, I tried to keep my voice down. Older gentleman, with family, asked me to speak up. He still couldn't hear me. His family laughed and said something like, "You daft bugger. The card's been declined." He laughed, said he used the wrong card. Fortunately, the other one worked. At least it was a positive reaction. I once was standing in line behind a new Canadian whose card kept getting declined. It was almost closing time and she was trying to buy diapers, baby food and some regular groceries. She was panicked and insisted that there was a problem with the machine. The cashier at Safeway was being rude and condescending and insisted that there was nothing wrong with the machine. The lineup behind me was growing and the cashier's attitude made me uncomfortable, so I offered to pay. She said she had money. I insisted it wasn't a problem. Her items fell just short of $50. We added my items to her transaction and I paid with my debit card. I was there long enough to hear the transaction behind me get declined. Then the cashier said something like, "Oh, that's right. Credit cards are down right now." Just the other day I had a lady whose card got declined. Her response was to try it about 6 more times. Then it hit her. She works at a resale shop and had to use a big magnet for jewelry or something. She forgot to take her card out of her pocket and long story short, she managed to demagnetize her card. Her solution was to run home and grab cash, which wouldn't have been a big deal except she ran her food stamp card first, and the register physically will not let me do anything except finish tendering. So I had to cash her out, return the non-food items, hold them until she got back, and ring them. And yes, she spent a good 5 minutes ranting about how I was conspiring against her until she figured out what happened. Edit, because a lot of people are asking. I couldn't key in her card number manually because I have to have the card in my hand to do it, and the customer refused to give it to me. The guy had a rubber band with like 30 plus cards. None of them worked. Was my first day on the job. Most people are confused or embarrassed. Some try to hide it with anger. It's rarely interesting. I always just felt kinda bad for the person. One lady gave me her card and asked for scissors to cut up her old one. She was cutting as her card I was running got declined. She cut up the wrong one. Nothing I could do. She was pissed. My buddy would always call his brother-in-law and yell at him when this happened, but it would actually be a random person from his contact list who would get an earful about Jerry blowing all his money at the track. I had a lady show my over 26k in one bank account and over 5k in the other on her iPhone to prove she wasn't lying. She had money. It was the first time I saw that much money in one place where it was accessible. It was like money porn. I totally believed her at first though. She was traveling for the concert, and it happens a lot where a card gets declined cause the bank thinks it's fraud. She was buying over $200 worth of merch, and ended up getting the money from a friend or something. On the receiving end, I was working in construction pretty far from home, and for lunch I went to get a $8 custom sandwich from a fancy grocery store. At the register my card got declined, and when it did I immediately checked my phone and saw I had a zero balance. I told the lady sorry I can't pay for this, and she said wait hold on, and called a few people over and she ended up paying for it for me. I still remember her face. I tried to pay her back after my next payday but she said no, I don't want it. I like to help, and I imagine one other people will do the same. I will never forget her. She turned what would have been a depressing day into something I will never forget. Edit. Grammar. I told this over at Art Alice from Retail. Lady comes through my line early Christmas Eve, as in before 9 AM. She's got well over $300 worth of stuff. She pays with a couple of gift cards and then her debit card. The card is not approved, but it's not that you've got no money declined. She tries again and gets the same message. She asks me to suspend and she'll come back within 30 minutes with another card. About 15 minutes later she comes back. She said she went out to the car and called her husband and he found out the account was suspended. Since the bank wasn't open, they couldn't do anything. She had $30 in cash plus the gift card, so she whittled the order down to where she could pay. As she was doing this, she explained it was bad news and good news. The bad news was that the account was suspended because of a large purchase the day before. The good news was that it was her husband buying her Christmas gift. She left with a big smile. I guess it must be free. Guy gets visibly embarrassed and tries to start a conversation about how fat I'm getting. Literally laughs in his face. Changed the subject by offering to pay for his meal. Not a cashier, but a person who's had his card declined in the past. Saw a woman trying to buy candy for her child. Card after card declined. I paid for it and the little girl never knew anything was wrong. The mom was very thankful. The mom was a nurse of some sorts. Judging by her scrubs, I know how hard these people work. She deserves to be able to pay for a treat for her child. Also, she was hot and didn't have a ring on her finger. Overall 9/10. Buy candy for children again. When I bought my TV, like $700, my card was declined and the guy was saying somewhat condescending it like, well, it could be the money isn't there, or maybe something else. Since nobody was behind me, I immediately called my bank and found out they declined it because it was over $500. I guess they auto-enrolled me in some protection thing where if it's over 500, they decline. Then send you a text message and you just respond yes or no. If you say yes, just swipe it again. What's funny is the whole time I was on the phone I didn't realize I had that text waiting. So it worked after that, but was embarrassing. Not me, but an elderly lady in front of me at a Walgreens. She had mostly food items. When her card declined, she was very gracious and simply pulled a couple of items aside. It went through, but I saw that the items were nuts and jerky, you know, protein sources, and I started imagining her being on a fixed income and being malnourished. So I paid for them myself and then found her in the parking lot and said, "Mom, excuse me, but I think you left this behind," and handed her the bag. I walked quickly away before she could say anything. I have another story about how I bought a guy a Slurpee at a 7-Eleven because his card declined for something that literally cost a couple bucks, and my heart broke for him. I figure this is my neighborhood. These are my neighbors. I know what it's like to be broke AF. If I can spare a couple dollars, then why not? Edit to say I'm soft-hearted. I work at a burger joint and I've never had anything over the top. One guy just kept pulling out more cards to try. He must have tried like 5 cards before one worked. It was like a magician pulling scarves. And I was both awed and horrified. As someone who has only ever had one debit card and that card alone, my personal favorite was some guy, pretty young, who ordered a pretty large order, 8 hamburgers and some other stuff, drinks and whatnot. It's gonna be our last order for the night cause we're closing in like 5 minutes. Our system puts the order through to get made up before the person pays. Bad system. So it takes less time between payment and receiving their food. Well, the guy's first card declines. So does his second. Let me go to my car real quick. Guy walks right out and never comes back. His food is already made though. So the managers gave a burger to each of the staff members who were staying to clean and close that night. Best free burger I've ever had. Late to the party, but this one was pretty heartwarming. A woman came through with a bag of dog food, some clothes, and a bit of makeup. Total was probably about $120 US. Run her card and it declines. So she asks if I could take the makeup and clothes off. Tried again and it still declines. She broke down crying. saying she didn't deserve the affection of her dog and that she was a horrible person because she couldn't even afford a $20 bag of food to feed him. Clearly, she had a bit of a rough patch going. And so, dude behind her in line asks me what the largest quantity of dog food we sell is and where in the store it is. I tell him the size and location. He tells the woman to wait and comes back with two 50-pound bags of dog food over his shoulder. Dude sets in on the belt, buys it and the clothes and makeup. Woman proceeds to cry harder and thanks him profusely, hugging and kissing him on the cheek. Dude says it's not a big deal, that he was just recently out of a situation like that so he understood. And a lot of itty people come through retail, but witnessing little moments like this made it bearable. I guess I'll just pay cash. Pulls out 10 Benjamins. It's actually super easy to tell whose card is declined because they have no money and who is just experiencing a card machine error. If someone's card is declined when it shouldn't be, the owner will usually be calm or slightly amused. Oh ha, that's funny. Weird. Try this one. If someone's card is declined because they are bottomed out, they'll throw a red fit. What? No. This account has $4,000 in IT. It's fine. This is ridiculous. I just checked IT a minute ago. It's fine. Your TY machine is duck ED. 9 times out of 10 the first guy's card works the second time. 9 times out of 10 the second guy has no cards that work no matter how many times you try. Server at a restaurant, but it still applies. This guy dining at my restaurant came in with his family, racked up a pretty large bill, somewhere around $200. When he goes to pay, his card is declined. I run it 3 more times before I respectfully ask if he has another form of payment. He doesn't understand. He says it's a new card and claims I was running it wrong. I ran it with him standing right next to me on 3 different computers. I tell him that there is an ATM right across the street. If he wants to go get money and come back, that would be fine. He does, but when he walks back in the restaurant after he gives me the cash, with 0 tip, starts walking around the restaurant yelling F% tsunami repeatedly, unscrews all the light bulbs in the front of the restaurant by the door and throws them in the garbage can with his family, consisting of 3 young children, watching the whole thing. Edit. Tsunami is the name of the restaurant I was working at. Not declined, but card machine not working at Subway. Just happened a week ago. Walked into Subway. They had a big sign on the door, cash only. Card machine malfunction. I of course didn't notice as I was on my phone. Ordered my sub and had an issue as I had no cash. So I went to the ATM down the street. Got money and ate my sub, no issue. Another guy walks in and the same thing happens to me. He also decides to go to the ATM down the street. Only his card gets declined. He says it's because he was out of state and his bank wouldn't allow it. So he comes back to tell the lady and she's really sorry. He gets really angry and walks out the door yelling, next time make the sign a little bigger so I don't waste all my ducking time. Thanks a lot. I'm sure some people have had worse reactions to things like that, but I couldn't help but laugh. Yes, the sign could have been a little bigger, but when I walked back in after going to the ATM I realized the sign was pretty damn decently sized. Could the cashier have asked each customer beforehand? Yay. She started doing that after this guy was in a chat. But really, is it her fault that he wasn't paying attention?